A running back with higher hopes, Zach Moss against your Commanders, Matthew. Zach Moss has kind of taken charge of this backfield where it looked unclear throughout the summer, and you have to love the matchup here.
Yeah, everyone thought in the summer, and I was included in this, that it's going to be a Chase Brown, Zach Moss. And by the way, Chase Brown was kind of this trendy sleeper, like he's going to explode, and Zach Moss is this plodding guy. And, you know, Chase Brown is the guy going later in drafts, but he's the sleeper that you want. And yet, Zach Moss through 2 weeks has every single goal line rush for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's got 75% of Cincy's running back rushes. And oh, by the way, who does he get on Monday night? But my horrific Commanders, who are top 10 so far in the NFL in terms of most yards per carry allowed to opposing running backs. And look, Bengals are 7.5-point favorites. They should probably be more. Positive game script. I think Moss has a big game. He's my running back 14. My running back 16. I'm definitely keeping it open. And little hint, he's going to be on the love list tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this open on Zach Moss as well. It hasn't been a good overall start for him to the season, but when you think about it, he's played against New England's defense and the Kansas City defense. Those are two of the better defenses in the league. We saw Derek,
especially against the run.
Yeah, and we saw Devin Singletary just go 16 for 95 and the touchdown. And what you say about Chase Brown, to this point, Zach Moss has played 73% of the snaps and is out touching him 24-10. So that's not an issue either. I would bank on Zach Moss getting in the end zone this week.
And I don't know what happened to him in Buffalo. It's weird, right? But it feels like he went to Buffalo and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. But then he goes to Indy and explodes, breaks out, and
Cincinnati clearly likes him as the guy.
Like they were comfortable letting Joe Mixon leave, and
he needed time. Like most NFL players do, it actually looked bad for him coming out of Buffalo. But like many guys, he was able to get time to develop, got to the Colts, showed that he could play, and here we are.
Since he left Buffalo, whenever he's gotten a chance, he produces.
He really has.
He's going to get a chance on Monday night, and he will produce.
We move over.
He plays my Commanders.
To the pass catchers here. Lawrence, the good news for Amari Cooper, 8 targets in week 2. The bad news, you don't hear this often when you get 8 targets, wide receiver 72 with 4 fantasy points. That feels hard to do. Can you possibly keep this one open? Because it is the Giants' secondary. I will say that.
I'm on this wild, too, because he's the 4th best receiver on their team from a fantasy perspective, but is clearly their best receiver. This is why I'll keep it open for this week. 1, they're playing the Giants, and that's secondary. 2, he's on the field 91% of the time. That's the most of any Browns receiver. He's got a 21.5% target share. That's still the most on the team. So he just got to catch the ball. If he catches the ball against the Jaguars, we talking about him different. We're saying he got back on track, this, that, and the third. If he just simply does that, then he won't even be in this segment this week.
Yeah, this one's tough because you want to, again, to your point, there's positives here, right? The volume has been there. 22.4% target share. That's the highest on the Browns through 2 games. And, oh, by the way, he gets the Giants this week. That's pretty good as well. The concern here is that over 40% of Amari Cooper's targets are on deep passes, which we define as 15 yards or more downfield, which sort of explains the low catch rate, but also is he's not getting those easy catches anymore. That's going to Jerry Jeudy. They're doing some, Elijah Moore. We'll see if David Njoku's back this week. Probably not. But the fact of the matter is just there's no, he is truly more boom or bust as opposed to when he was getting some of the easier stuff. You're like, oh, there's at least a floor for Amari Cooper because he's going to get sort of those easy ones. He's gotten 17 targets this year. He's caught 5 of them through 2 weeks. He's wide receiver 85 in fantasy points per game. He's wide receiver 85, and I get it. He's a big-name player in a good matchup, but I'm closing it out. Again, I think if I were at a different point of the season, but so many people I've heard from, I'm 1-1 and I shouldn't be, or I'm 0-2 and I got to win this week. And I hear you, and I think a lot of the reasons why teams that are 0-2 or 1-1 and barely, 1-1, but they're 8th in their league in total points because maybe they squeaked one out is because some of these guys that we expected production from, the Jared Goffs, the Amari Coopers of the world, just have been so brutal for the first 2 weeks. And so I get, I just, at some point you sort of say, I need to see it before you're back in my lineup. And that's where I am with Amari Cooper. Deshaun Watson has been inconsistent at best. He looked better in week 2 than he did week 1, but he hasn't looked great. And this is certainly, when you think about their defense, you think about the Browns' defense against Daniel Jones, there's a chance that I could see a turnover, a short field. They just may not need to throw as much against the Giants, where they could be able to run effectively and play good defense and win this game. And so if they're not chucking it deep to Amari Cooper and they're not throwing it a bunch, you could easily see there's a couple of different paths, both game script, poor play from Deshaun Watson, just not being able to connect on deep passes. There's a couple of different paths where just Amari Cooper has another bad fantasy day, whereas what you're hoping for is they take a shot and they connect, which is always possible. But my wide receiver 32, I'm going to close it out. It's
been a slow start to the year for Tank Dell here, Matthew, a guy that we know he kind of needs the big play. Fortunately, he's in an offense that can hit the big play. Do you remain optimistic that better days are ahead for Tank Dell, especially against Minnesota, which on the back end, they're not perfect?
Yeah, I really do. I'm a big believer in Tank Dell, as you guys know. He's my guy. I think, the one long pass on Sunday night, I think if he comes down with that, it's a different story as well. 45% of his targets have come on deep passes, 13.4 averaged up the target. And I know I just killed Amari Cooper for the same thing, but, Tank Dell's a different guy.
C.J. Stroud's a different guy.
And C.J. Stroud's a different guy. I mean, those are the two keys as well. Yeah. The other thing is, we talk about matchup. Through 2 games, no team has allowed more receptions on deep passes than the Minnesota Vikings. You can beat them over the top, and they have to get Tank Dell going. So they're going to take a couple of shots here as well. By the way, Vikings also allow a 75% catch rate on deep targets. That's the 4th highest in the NFL. You see it there on your screen. He's wide receiver 27 for me. I think Tank Dell is a buy low. The route participation is there. The target share is there. They just haven't connected on big passes. But we know about the talent of both Dell and his quarterback and this Texans offense overall. This is your last chance to buy low on Tank Dell. Keeping it open.
Yeah, it's definitely some similarities with Amari Cooper and Tank Dell there as far as
but
like
how you feel better about the offensive environment in Houston than Cleveland, I think.
Do. Like, Tank Dell got the better quarterback and overall situation. Amari Cooper is the number 1 guy as far as like snap shares, targets go. Anywho, Tank Dell, it was wild. He was wide receiver 92 last week. And for all the stuff we gave Malik Willis, about what he couldn't do for the receivers, Dontavian Wicks was wide receiver 27. Romeo Dobbs was wide receiver 35. Jaden Reed, wide receiver 53. All those guys was ranked ahead of Tank Dell in week 2. He's playing 66% of the snaps. And this is what I looked at, too, that was interesting. Like you said, the Vikings' defensive back end, they're like George Kittle went off, Debo went off. I look at Brandon Ayuk. He was their 3rd option in week 2. He went 4 for 43. Tank Dell is their 3rd option. For right now, I'm feeling like that's what he could have unless he get that big play. Like Amari Cooper, unless he get that big play.
I kind of think Tank Dell's the 2nd option. I know we haven't seen it through, but I think I rank him slightly ahead of Diggs.
So what we thought too coming into this season was
2A and 2B kind of like
right,
that.
but in the offseason they kind of felt like 1A, 1B, 1C. Well, that's too many ones, right? And it's not like C.J. Stroud is playing great football, but he ain't lighting up the scoreboard. He's got 3 TD passes, hasn't thrown for more than 260 yards, so something's got to give. I'm closing it out this week.
I don't know. I mean, They were able to run so effectively against the Colts they didn't need to throw. Bears are a very good defense. We'll see what happens, this week against Minnesota. I think they'll have more success and it'll be more of a balanced offense.
And it could feel like a cat and mouse game too, where I know Mixon's banged up, but eventually teams can start to alter how they're playing the Texans run. Or Nico Collins. I mean, you have the conversation. Nico Collins deserves some bracket coverage at some point. He's an alpha wide receiver. He's eating everyone alive.
Yeah.
At some point, that's going to happen, and then who's one-on-one that can run by anyone? Tank Dell.
They try to get Tank Dell the ball, too, also in the run game, too. They'll use him on the reverses and the jet sweep type. So they clearly want to get him the ball.
Yeah.
It just had to happen. So I'm feeling like him, how you feel about Cooper. Like, I got to see something before I go like, oh, he's definitely back in. Because we want to play Tank Dell as our wide receiver, too. Yeah. But he's probably close to a flex right now, if anything.
Our last one here, guys, Dalton Kincaid. It's been a slow start for Dalton Kincaid. It was okay last week, 4 targets. He caught them all for 33 yards. He did get banged up throughout the game, but right now, Matthew, I mean, the tight end market overall is just not great. I feel like you just have to wait this one out.
It's been brutal. He's too good. The offense is too good. It's not like there's a lot of other great options out there in terms of tight ends. It's worth noting that, he's tied for second on the Bills for targets. They're just not throwing a lot. They didn't need to throw a lot against Miami. They did against Arizona, but they're sort of spreading it out. But I'm still hanging tough, as you see here on your screen, sort of the receiving leaders of Buffalo this year as well. Khalil Shakir is 8 for 8, 96 yards on the season. But again, it's so early. The fact him and Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman both have 6 targets. Kincaid second on the team in receptions with 5. They just haven't thrown a ton. I think they will have to throw more against the Jaguars as well. 83% of Kincaid's targets have come in the slot, which is also helpful as well. So I'm keeping it open with Kincaid. He's my tight end 7, so slightly lower based on the lack of production the first 2 weeks. But if you've drafted him, I'm sticking by him because, again, I just think the options you might have are not great.
I'm about to say, I'm keeping this open because it's not like it's 6 or 7 or 8 tight ends above him that's just killing it right now, right? Week 1, he played 83% of the snaps, and that was more of a normal game script. Week 2, he only played 19% of the snaps, but they weren't. Josh Allen threw the ball 19 times, So, I think that's a one-off type of game. The Jaguars have only given up 2 catches for 17 yards to tight ends in the first 2 games, but that was Jordan Atkins, that was Jonnu Smith. Dalton Kincaid, different type of player, used differently. And in the beginning of the Buffalo Bills' second game, they were active. 2 of those 4 catches came in the first quarter. So they was trying to get him the ball in the short areas. So I'm going to keep it open for Dalton Kincaid.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.